thank you so much for joining us today on the Cash Flow Show to talk about your business, FireWire Digital. Could you tell me a little bit about your business, how you got started, and how it's grown since its founding?
So we started when I was actually sacked from a role, an SEO role. I was a digital marketing role at a general marketing agency, mid 2017, and that was at a general marketing agency where the person running it didn't have an understanding of SEO. So when they were going to talk to clients, as they wouldn't let me talk to clients, they were promising things that shouldn't have been said or couldn't be done. So when they lost their SEO clients, I was let go, and I was thinking, oh my God, what do I do now? I just moved up to a different region to buy a house with my wife, and kind of sat around for about a month or two, and then went, well, I just had that thought, well, if they can get SEO clients and they don't know what they're doing, surely I can do it, right? Like, now it's never that simple, but that's when I started. Now, so we kind of looked at, when I first started, I'm in a part of Australia where we're 2 hours outside of Sydney, so we're still quite close, but it is a regional part of Australia. So when I looked at what services or what businesses were around the area, they were all what we call, full service agencies, offering everything, SEO, Google ads, pay-per-click, social ads, social media management, website design, everything, right?
Right.
There was no real specialist agencies. So instantly, straight away, when I was looking at, the market, I wanted to be what was available in Sydney or Melbourne, a specialist service. That was my background, before that job was in SEO and Google ads. That was where I'd learnt my trade in different businesses. But, being in this part of Australia, there was just none of that really available. Now, in saying that, that's the ideal that I wanted to progress to. But when you start as any agency, you take on anything.
Right.
Because you have to get money, right? Like,
exactly.
You're taking on any clients. You're taking, when you probably shouldn't take them on, but you do it because it's a bit of extra money into the business. But I reckon, so about 12 months into running, I was freelancer agency contracting out to do some like content writers, and that was really about it, really. Then everything was just me. But up to about a 12-month mark, we kind of hit a point where I had enough clients to start going, you know what, I don't want to do social media ads. It's not my passion. I can do them. I don't like to do them. So we then narrowed our services down. So now that was the step to getting to where we wanted to be. Then about 6 months after that or so, another 12 months down the track, my wife and I had a baby, and it was to the point where I needed to take a step back from the business to be with the family. So then we went to that conversation of, well, we've got to bring in staff. So we brought in 3 staff now since that. So we're getting to that point where I wanted to be at the start, where we are a specialist agency doing SEO, doing Google ads, removes a lot of the services we didn't want to do,
right.
And start to pick and choose clients a bit more.
Right. You have that,
so
that
yeah,
flexibility.
it's kind of the journey to where we're at, but it started when I was sacked. And then you go, what do I do now?
Yeah, no, it's surprisingly an amazing motivator. I've spoken with a lot of people who have had that experience, either potentially being laid off or anything like that, and then it's just kind of propelled them to realize their own potential, like what you can really do, and you're not depending on
and it really was just like,
Mhm.
If this person can run a business, like, and they don't know what they, and I know they don't know what they're doing,
Right.
surely I can do it if I have half an idea. And of course, it's not that simple. You're never, when you run a business, you're never ever just doing the work. You're management, you're an entrepreneur, you have to push the business. Like there's many different factors that go into it.
Mhm.
But, you've got to have the vision to start, right?
Exactly. You have to have the foundations and like at least the skill set that you can provide that service
Yeah,
or value,
yeah,
which you
yeah,
had.
exactly right.
And
Yeah,
you're like, yeah, no, that's perfect. And when you got started, I know for SEO, especially, there's a lot of software, there's a lot of like aids and things like that. Um, how did you decide like what tools you needed to start out with, or like how did you fund that aspect? Like, did you bootstrap it, or
it
how did that
was
work?
it's SEO is, yeah, there's thousands of tools, right? Like,
Right.
and of course, there's key ones that you want to have access to do the best job you can.
Mhm.
In saying that, you can still be quite an effective SEO with the free tools available.
Mhm.
I was lucky that when I started, we did already have I'd already had a couple of referrals on. So I did have a base level of money coming in that allowed me to purchase the monthly subscription to a couple.
Mhm.
Now that's when I started. I was to what I have now. I was probably only running at about 20% of the tools at the start.
Right.
The costs of tools is massive. But back then, you really had to be selective on what was going to provide the best outcomes for the client, the type of clients we had, and then work. I've got two tools now. One's called Ahrefs, one's called SEMrush.
Mhm.
They are quite similar. When I started, I only had one of them.
Right.
So you've just got to be selective, right? Like, but yeah, that was honestly one of probably the hardest things at the start, because you go, I know I need some level of tools. But even when you start, there's tools now that I'm happy to test out for a couple of months because we've got the money. But back then, I would have killed to be able to test out different tools.
Right.
You've got to know what you know at the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a process.
Right. And when you get to that point where you can start testing out tools, how did you decide you were at this point, like, yes, I can afford to do this? Was this like before you took on people or after, or like, is there a certain revenue wall that you decide like, yes, once I hit this level of monthly income, I can take on this tool? How do you make these decisions?
One of the things I implemented 12 months into the business, 12 to 18 months into the business, once I had a solid grounding of this is how much it costs to run a business type of thing, I implemented I read a book called Profit First.
Right.
And it's a wonderful book, right? In terms of how to think about getting, the accounts of the business. So what in that it suggests there's these little calculations that you can run. But in that, it talks about splitting out your operating expenses, salaries, any kind of major category of expense. So when I implemented that, it became really clear of when we had enough money in the essentially the operating expenses,
right,
to, we've got, it's not much, maybe a few extra $100 this month. Let's try this tool.
right.
Instead of giving yourself a $20 pay rise for a couple of months, like, let's try a tool out.
Right.
Let's put some extra money away for a rainy day. But yeah, that system allowed me to really quickly start to see when we were running at a higher profit, and when we had that money available. Okay.
I know that makes sense. And speaking on cash flow, what kind of revenue model do you use?
So at the start, it was purely transactional / service based, provide service for clients, they pay up, hopefully. Then we've only recently started down the path of the affiliate model as well, purely because, you know, we've got the skill set to do it, but it was about having the time and resources available to put into it. I would like it to be a larger percent of the revenue into the business. However, you know, that's going to grow over time. That's the goal.
I know that makes sense. Adding in that second revenue model, the affiliate revenue model. How does that, I guess, how does setting up something like that work for an agency? Because I feel like with affiliates, I've seen it a lot with blogs, a lot, and kind of that side income. How does that, I'm just, how does it work, I guess?
So essentially what we try and do, so there's lots of ways you can run affiliate marketing. You know, traditionally, lots and lots of people know it from, you know, your blogs, your mum blog linking off to a couple of products. But when you're talking about there's a whole world out there of websites that are just built around affiliate marketing. You know, even like news websites now, they have whole content like sites where they're just linking out to different products and getting that affiliate income back, right? So in terms of how it works for someone like our business, you know, you're not talking, like you're talking about, it's almost like a separate business within the company. You know, you have your client side and then you have your affiliate side, right? So, you know, and you get your staff to work on both, but they're essentially separate entities bringing the money in. But what you do is you can either start a website from scratch or buy a pre-existing website and build that up. So generally what we look to do is buy an existing site that's a little bit established and then give it some love, give it some attention, write a bunch of content, get Google loving it. Then, you know, websites sell at the moment for about 30 to 32, 30 to 40 times their monthly revenue, monthly profit. So you're talking, you've only got to get a website making, you know, $100 profit a month, and that website sells for 3,000. You know, get that up to $1,000, and that website sells for 30. You know, so it's quite, if you know what you're doing, there's quite a bit potential growth there quite quickly as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I can see how that can quickly multiply the more you do it.
You very quickly multiply.
Yeah, wow, that's
so then, you know, the goal is you buy one for 3,000, build it up and sell it for 30 potentially. You know, all websites have kind of a cap they can reach, right? Depending on the niche you're writing for, the niche the website's in. You know, so you might build that website up to its what you think is its limit, sell it off, and then you're going to buy the next one that you can build bigger.
Well, that makes sense. And then it can scale just kind of exponentially. The more, like, the higher up you go, the more you can reinvest, the more you can make.
Correct.
So,
I know of someone recently that had a coffee-based website, and he ran it for about 5 years. Eventually, it was doing over 50K a month.
Oh, wow.
He had 4 or 5 staff just in that business, that affiliate website, and then he sold it for over $1 million. I was like,
amazing.
Yeah, goals, like, my God.
Yeah, for real. It makes me want to start an affiliate website now.
Yeah, exactly.
Hearing the mechanics. Yeah, no, that's amazing.
It can be done.
Yeah, but I'm sure that also has its own range of expenses as well, like writing the content and having that initial, like, upfront cost to make sure that you can.
And you do need, like, you've got to have these basic SEO skills. You know, you've got to understand your website's capacity. Where is your, you know, how is your website going to rank? Who are your competitors? You know, are you targeting the right words? You know, are you doing the right type of content?
Mhm.
You know, and that's before you start to even optimize that content to get people to click the link to buy the product. Like
Right.
you're trying to get people to your website, right?
Mhm.
So there's lots of things that go into it, you know, and many people do it as a full-time job.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it can become completely like time, like it just takes up everything.
Yeah.
If you get really into it. As a content writer, I would totally like get into
Mm.
that like
Yeah,
24/7.
exactly.
So yeah, no, that's amazing. So that's exciting to have that as well going on in the background. Um, so yeah, in terms of your reporting, switching a little bit to cash flow, how granular do you get when kind of going through your expenses and income, or how far off do you project?
Generally, we try and project about 6 months.
Okay.
I do that
Mhm.
purely because of the nature of kind of
Mhm.
agency life,
Mhm.
being like you can go through these dips and troughs, right? Like or peaks and troughs. So we have you get a general average of new clients coming in, which we factor into it, our cash flow. But then you've got to factor in that what the drop-off rate is and try and work that out, right? So that's kind of why we sit at 6 months.
Okay.
In terms of how granular it is, I implement what we talked about before about that profit first calculator. But to be able to get that, we've got to have the numbers for what we're spending each month, right? And where it's going and what's it doing. And even coming back again to the tools, you know, we have a constant list of the tools we're doing, what the expense are, you know, and then checking off each month, are we still using that? You know, we need to know, has it been used this month? Has it, you know, and if it's not used for a few months, well, why are we still paying for it? But unless you're recording what's going on, that can just build up, you know, like essentially it's like, you know, in your personal life, lifestyle creep, you know, you get all these different subscription services. Hang on, we've got 10 subscription services, but we only watch 2, right? You know, and you don't really know until 12 months, 2 years down the track, and you've paid all this money out. So I reckon once a month, I do a big audit on the monthly expenses, what's gone out, what's come in. I think as a business owner, you have to do it. I mean, otherwise you're just burying your head in the sand and you're asking yourself for problems. You know, what in Australia, I think the business stats are, you know, 80% of businesses fail in their first couple of years. Like, and I'd say that's purely down to, well, not purely, but a lot down to the management of the money.
Right. Yeah, I think I've read that statistic as well. It's similar in the US that most businesses fail. One of the main reasons is the lack of cash flow management or the lack of cash on hand. They're just not kind of seeing that long-term savings, either not having a cushion or they don't have just kind of the visibility of like where their money is going back and forth and keeping.
Yeah, and I think that's where the profit first for me is been invaluable, because it literally tells me, like, every time I'd probably look at it 2, 3, 4 times a week when I'm transferring money from different, like from the income account, what's it called? But it forces me to put money away for what we have in Australia called superannuation, for staff and myself. And it also forces me to put the taxes away. So when the tax bill comes around, I've got the money sitting there. It's not a shock. Like, I know to the dollar what it is, and the money's already there. And okay, as soon as I get the bill, it's paid out. There's no shock there for any of those things. I mean, you know, we use accounting software Xero at the same time, so that, you know, that helps as well. But, you know, those two in conjunction, you know, looking at regularly.
Right. So besides Xero, what else do you use?
I use Google Sheets.
Google Sheets. Right.
Google Sheets. Yeah. So I regularly, I've got I mean, it's not a complex system, but it's certainly a tally on the overall income and what each client is bringing in. Then looking at the salaries that are going out, and then all the other expenses in another column. Yeah, and that's just what I'll just update that regularly. You know, if anything changes, anything major, if if we lost a client, not I don't go down to level like if I've bought a client a coffee or something.
Right, like those are like super small, like one-time things. Like, yeah,
I don't get down to that. But in terms of the guaranteed regular recurring costs, I 100% record that and update it every month.
Right, definitely. Especially for I think what really resonated with me was the taxes part, because I feel like I have relatives who have small businesses, and I can definitely see the difference between planning for taxes versus not planning for taxes in terms of stress level. So I always like in my cash flow, I use Pulse app actually now. I've switched. I've bought into Pulse app. So yeah, no, I've been using that, and I just estimate my taxes at the higher tax rate just for the assumption, and just kind of include that as an expense. So that way, if it's it's never over that amount, but at least I have that, so the stress isn't there.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think my wife and I went through a period of where we never looked at it, right? Like we just never, growing in your 20s, you just living life, you get your money, you spend it, you go out, you eat, restaurants, bars, whatever, right? Then we hit a point where I think it was close when we bought a house. We just went, we can't do this. Like we just got this bill, and how are we going to pay for this? We've got to change. So we changed and implemented a very similar system into the household budget. But, I never really thought about it, that you could transition it to a business until I read some of these other books. I went, no, of course you can. It's just about dedicating where the money's got to go. And it's just like, I will tell any business owner they need to read like Profit First, and there's a couple other books. But like I tell anyone, it just takes the stress out of the whole money side. Like, understanding where your money is going, understanding what your money is doing. You don't need to not have to worry about a bill coming in or worry if you've got enough money in the account. You can then focus on growing the business, on being the entrepreneur. You're not stuck in this hat of management, or where you're just trying to put out fires.
Exactly, because you've planned everything in advance. That's the paying yourself first principle. That I think you said is part of the profit first model. That way it's all there, it's done. You can move on to the business and what you do, instead of just waste away over spreadsheets.
Wondering if you've got enough money for your tax bill coming up.
That's just, no one needs that stress.
No way.
Right.
No,
No, that's wonderful. And I think, I actually haven't read Profit First yet, but I feel like almost every single business owner has recommended it to me this year to read.
Really?
It's crazy. I need to read it. It's on my list.
Got to read it.
But it's become, I think, like it's almost like the defining book, I think, for many people, especially dealing with finance and just successful business management. So definitely reading that after this call this weekend.
It's such a simple way to implement just, a clean understanding of how to view the money, when it comes in, what's it got to do,
exactly,
how much money you actually have to spend. I think that's where, to me, from what I know a number of businesses, people that run businesses, and they just have this one account where money comes in and money goes out. It's the same account, and they've got no clear visibility on what should be spent, or how much do they actually have to spend. Right. No, you don't have the $10,000 sitting in that account to spend. You've got $1,000 because you've got all these other expenses that you need to pay for first that you haven't thought about.
Exactly. So just having that, no, 100%. So real quick, because I think we're running short on time. Do you have any other advice that you would give to agency owners or people who are looking to start their own business in terms of cash flow or even just business principles like people should have?
Business principles, I would say always put your customer first, provide, people can forgive, you know, I'm not going to say crappy service, but, you know, if something goes wrong, right, people will forgive that if you tell them and you provide a quality service. I often tell people that from a number of businesses I've worked with, that businesses can succeed despite their owners. That's kind of, you know, often business owners are the thing that can stop businesses thriving just because of the way they think or what they do. In terms of agencies, I'd say specialize, niche down, find a niche, whether that's a service offering or whether that's an industry. It's honestly the best thing we've done. You were able to build a specialized team. Then you're not trying to be this all and everything for everyone, which you just can't. You stretch yourself too thin. You know, you can't be the expert of everything. You know, and if someone asks me for Facebook advice, I go, look, I know this, this, and this, but I'm not an expert. You know, talk to me about SEO, Google Ads. Yep, fine. I can talk to the cows come home. But you know, I personally would rather deal with a specialist, and they're the type of people I would like to come to our company, that want a specialist that knows their field.
Yeah, 100%. I think definitely knowing what you do and providing that skill is super important, just for this, keeping your sanity, but also keeping your customers happy.
I just it was differentiates you in the market. You know, you become known as that, right? You're not, you know, when I just looked around when we first started, and from what I've learned since, you know, just in my area of the world, you know, there's dozens of people trying to offer everything. They all look the same, they all sound the same, they all are the same, right? Like, what makes them stand out? Nothing.
Exactly.
You know, like, so I'd say you need to stand out, you know, be different. You know, it's scary, 100%. It's scary. Like, you know, there's comfort to be like everyone else. You know, there's safety, but when you can be different, that's when people pay attention. That's when people come to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 100%. So thank you so much, Brogan, for speaking with us today. We really appreciated your time and expertise.
So thank you for having me.